All right, welcome back to another episode of the Lookout Podcast. I'm joined by Dr. Austin Davis of Life Chiropractic, outdoorsman and chiropractor, and right. Montana Internet. Wait, say that again.
I'm the Montana representative for the International Chiropractic Association, so I represent Montana on the international board for things like policy and regulation for chiropractic.
Oh, this is awesome, man. I appreciate that, for all of us folks who need your care, so just in case something happens, and know that you got our back on that deal,
That's the goal.
Yeah. And I want to have you on today just because, being a wildland firefighter and all the bumps and bruises and just, ailments we get inside and out. Yeah. And I know, with your business, you cover a ton of stuff, some of the notes I got here is self-care, preventative care, care post-injury. So, hit a bunch of that stuff. And then just all little fire-related injury stuff that, we cover too. I mean, one of the big things that I've noticed in my career is that, everyone in fire, no matter if you're a smoke jumper, hot shot, on a district engine, heli-tac, whatever it might be, you're usually carrying a chainsaw at some point. And
right.
Chainsaws, I don't know, 30 pounds or more, and it's on one shoulder. Everyone carries on the right shoulder because that's just how the power head and everything is kind of,
right.
Lines up. So it's just way easier carrying the right side. So you always got 30 or more pounds on one shoulder, and that's can't be good for long term. I would imagine,
No, like anything, the body responds to these kind of patterns, and people all have patterns, whatever line of work, but have patterns in your guys' line of work, and it's pretty prevalent that there's a lot of weight, a lot of stress, a lot of strain on the body, and the body responds to that both on a musculoskeletal level and mental emotional level. So it's all tied in.
Yeah, and the mental emotionals I was going to talk to you about too, because I think the grind of fire season is a grind. Sure. Anyways. You're not getting much sleep, and one of the notes I had is just sleeping on the ground. Not good sleeping conditions, low hours of sleep, quality sleep. 4 or 5 hours. I would imagine most people probably get on a fire, even if it's a dead fire. It's
right.
just not quality, and in long term, you're kind of getting at is, brutal for you. And by the time you're at the end of the fire season, there's no way your brain's operating on a good ideal level.
I would imagine not.
No.
Yeah. But first and foremost, I should say I wholeheartedly appreciate what you and all your listeners, what you all do, because before we all get into this, there's a quick story I was going to tell you, and I don't know if you know this. Like a lot of people out here, I'm not originally from Montana, right? I'm from the East Coast, and I went out to school out in the great state of California. It happens to be where one of the best chiropractic schools in the world is. I also went to UC Santa Cruz, so for any listeners out there, banana slugs.
Hey.
And so I was out there, and I had moved my family up to South Lake Tahoe.
Oh,
we knew when we were going to move out of that area for many reasons.
Yeah.
We knew we were out, and we wanted to raise a family the way we wanted to raise a family, and it just wasn't going to happen there.
Yeah.
So we were living in South Lake Tahoe up on the Echo Summit, and for some of you might know the largest forest fire in Northern California history was the Caldor Fire, and that Caldor Fire ran a path straight through where I live. So we had to evacuate our cabin because of that. So I sent my family up to Montana because my uncle lives up in the Flathead.
Oh, nice.
And I spent the day just trying to get as much gear into the truck as possible to save whatever we could save.
Yeah.
Because at the time, the fire was about 10, 13 miles from us, but was moving about 10 miles a day.
Jeez.
So we were there. I was trying to hook my neighbor, this old timer, his trailer up to get him out of there, and he's like, I've been through fires, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I got this.
I was like, Jim, you gotta get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, this ain't good, man.
Yeah, I was like, you gotta go.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got sprinklers, we're good. And so I was loading my truck, and the smoke was coming in thick, and it was a moment where I was sitting there I had been doing defensible space for a few years, so we were clearing out what we could clear, but
smart.
There was a big, beautiful tree in front of the cabin. I was sitting there with my saw, and I'm like, oh, do I take this down? It's like my wife's favorite tree. It's right in front of the deck. And I was like, if the fire's this close, we're going to lose the cabin anyway. So I left it, but got whatever I could get, got in the truck, and left, and just sort of said my goodbyes to everything. And sure enough, it took our 4 closest neighbors. When I say neighbor, they're a couple acres, almost a mile away.
Yeah.
But burned our 4 closest neighbors to the foundation, gone. and got to our place, and I had been contacted by some of the fire service because I knew them from town, and was providing care for them. And I think they drew the line at our place, and you could see the scorch marks up to within a few feet of our house, and then it just shot straight up the ridge, and they had pushed it up the other way, and our place survived. It made it, and it was sort of what they call survivor's remorse. It was like bittersweet that we were celebrating that we had saved our home, but some of our closest friends and neighbors lost theirs, but it was directly because of the work that you all were doing, and it saved our place. And it's where my son took his first steps. We have all our family gatherings there, and
oh man, that's important, man.
So then I have a portable table, so I set it up on the road there, and we went back to check it and just took care of everybody involved, all the firefighter, everybody that was doing it. And
we appreciate that, man.
Just set it up and was like, come get care, let me get you guys tuned up. And so for what it's worth, it's just as a thank you, it was directly the reason that our place was saved. And it was a horrifying experience up there, and
terrible.
The devastation is palpable. I mean, you go up there and it feels like you're on the surface of Mars, and we got to watch some of what was going on and what you guys all go through, and it's just nonstop. It felt like 24 hours a day, saws running.
Yeah.
The planes were coming through, helicopters, and people on the ground. It was amazing experience just to see how much work goes into it.
Yeah, it's a ton.
And I don't think people truly realize the impact, the strain, like what you guys all go through.
Well, I appreciate that, because it's really hard to explain it, like as well as you just did, about how hard the work is, because it's in the woods. Most people don't see it unless their house is about to get eaten by a fire.
The only way to get to our place in the winter is with a snow machine. I mean,
really?
We're deep in the national forest there, so it's not like, oh, you just pull up, hook up to a high and just start blasting. And I mean, it's even just to like the guys who do the power lines and stuff. They're out there backpacking to get in.
Jeez.
And do it. So these the firefighters, it's rugged terrain. We're up on this ridge, and nothing is easy up there. And
man,
the work they were doing, especially as a team, to see everyone working together, was amazing.
Yeah, like you said, team effort. I mean, because there is so much work. Like, there's no, even like one crew can't get it done by themselves. And I could definitely understand that, like almost like the survivor's guilt thing you were talking about, because you go through and you see like, oh yes, our home, and then like everything around it, like you said, is just like nuked out and gone, and you're like, oh man, these people just lost their place,
lost everything. Right?
Yeah.
The other amazing thing was to see how many other districts, states even sent people up, and the camaraderie, the team effort, where people were flying in from Texas, from all over, to come help out. And sometimes I think in a fire you feel like you're sort of isolated, you're all alone with this. It's like whoever's close by is going to help, and that's it. But I mean, half a dozen states or so sent people over, and that was really incredible.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because a lot of times those folks have never even met before, but it's, we all have the same kind of approach to fighting fire, and same language. So as soon as you get on scene, you just start talking and bumping each other, like what's your strengths and weaknesses, what do you guys got experience with, and start plugging people in, and it happens really, really fast. So for people like you who aren't in the agency or in fire world, like directly, like to see that happen, it's pretty cool that you noticed it.
It was incredible. Yeah, the teamwork, it was incredible. Yeah. So to start, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. That's a good way. What more do you like?
It's literally the reason we're here is because of a fire. So.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I'm glad you're here. I mean, it sucks that a fire pushed you here, but
no, we are too. We're glad to be here. Everything happens for a reason, and we don't always understand why something's happening. We can look at something being negative or sort of dwell on the past of loss and destruction, and we always say man makes plans and God laughs, and it's like we took it as an opportunity to just sort of restart and recalibrate and see what means the most to us. And so it was moving the family up here to a town that truthfully we had spent maybe 3 days in. And
oh, really?
We operate a lot on what feels innately right.
Same.
And as soon as we got here, I grew up in a town of like 5,000 people on the East Coast, a little farm town. So
really?
I had lived in cities for the rest of my life, and it's easy to live in a city. It's something about living out a little more rural, a little more country, and it's with a 5-year-old is how we wanted to raise our child. So like I said, we base a lot of our decisions on that innate feeling, and to tie it into what I do, it's chiropractic ultimately is what we say is just respecting the innate process, right? Yeah. Innate, for those who might not know, is inborn intelligence. It's the power of the universe distilled down into this human form, right? And chiropractic respects that innate intelligence, and that's what separates us from other healthcare. Just also to be clear, chiropractic is primary care. So a lot of times people think chiropractic might be alternative care or auxiliary care or something a little more mystical and this kind of thing. Yeah. Or a therapy. It's primary care. So it's on par with all the medical profession, just sort of parallel, in some ways perpendicular. Yeah. But where most healthcare is what we call outside in healing. So symptom based. So you have a migraine, you got hip pain, you got sciatica, you got a digestive problem, respiratory cardiac problem, you have mental emotional problems. They have a solution for the symptom. Yeah. Often, and I'm being a little blanketed, but often pharmaceutical or something, some medical intervention, right? Which on paper makes sense. You have a migraine, here's a migraine pill. You have a sciatica, here's an injection for that, right? Or you have low back pain, here's a muscle relaxer. The way chiropractic looks at it is, although there's always external factors, what's the internal cause of what's going on? Yeah. We had a patient who was suffering from migraines. Did a full body workup, which is also a little unique for healthcare because usually it's sort of point of chief complaint, right? It hurts here. Okay, we'll check here. Yeah. We checked the whole system, and it turns out she was a collegiate soccer player, had rolled her ankles so many times that the way she walks was all goofy, and then her ankles are all messed up, and that throws off the knee, throws off the hip. Hips have muscles that attach to the back of the skull. Back of the skull is getting pulled. Brain stem then gets interfered with, and she was suffering from migraines that really stem from severely rolled ankles. Yeah. And it's when you start to look at the body that way, then it's like, well, sure, you have symptoms, and symptoms suck, and we don't want people to live in pain. But if you're only pacifying symptoms, it's kind of like paying the interest on your credit card. You're going to like get through a day, week, month, year, couple years, and eventually it catches up with you and you're like really in a bad position. Yeah. We're going to go, okay, well, where's the principal cause of this? And if it's coming from another part of the body, we have to address that, right? Yeah. Ultimately, chiropractic is a study of the nervous system, right? And that's kind of sometimes shocking for people to hear. They think it's more bone, spine, neck, back. Yeah. It sounds crazy. We ultimately, we're not bone doctors. We're not neck or back doctors. We're doctors of the nervous system, like a functional neurologist. And the reason being is the central nervous system controls all function. Yeah. So what we think is, well, let's look at the system that controls all systems and start there. Once we clear what we call subluxation. So subluxation is where you have vertebrae that have misaligned. Oh, yeah. Now, a misalignment is a little different than a subluxation. Like if you dislocate a finger, that's a misalignment. Subluxation is a misalignment of vertebrae that impacts the central nervous system. Oh. So you think about that inborn intelligence we're talking about, and just so we're on the same page, because I've had people go, oh, well, it's not really that related or connected. The intelligence we're talking about is you take a little sperm, finds a little egg, matches up, and starts cellular division, right? And if there was no intelligence, those cells would just replicate the same cell, but at some point, little switch gets flipped and it's heart cells and liver cells and brain cells and kidney cells. And all of a sudden, 9 months later, you have a full human being. So the intelligence behind that is staggering when you really start to think about innate intelligence, what exists in our system at all times. So knowing that intelligence exists, we have what's called innate intelligence, and we have educated intelligence. Educated is, I've read a bunch of books. I'm an expert on this. I know things.
Yeah, I have a bachelor's.
Yeah, sure. You have a master's, a doctorate. Excellent. Yeah. Innate intelligence will always be smarter than you. Always. Yeah. So if something's interfering with that intelligence, which comes from ergonomics comes from injury, comes from carrying a 30-pound saw on one side, big old pack on yourself, laying on the ground for days, weeks sometimes.
Yeah.
The mental stress, emotional stress. We'll touch on the mental stress here in a minute, but the body then reacts to that, and it's adaptable. So it's going to adapt and shift and move. If one of those vertebrae shifts out of place and that central canal where the nervous system sits, gets impacted, what you're doing ultimately is interfering with the communication of the body, brain to body, body to brain. To take it one step further, and it's a little more esoteric, but also what we call self to source. Because you have this wellspring, this infinite intelligence that exists within you, you connect to.
Yeah.
So when that gets interrupted or interfered with, and you lose communication between self and source, between the internal workings, like any machine, any system, you run a machine out of alignment, you're going to wear it out faster than you would if it's in alignment. Same thing with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
Right? So when you run a system daily out of alignment, it's going to wear out faster. And the problem is that it gets blamed as sort of age-related, work-related. Oh, well, you're 40 now. Things are going to fall apart. And it's like, well, sort of.
Yeah.
But they're going to fall apart faster if for 20 years you've had interference to the internal communication, and the brain's trying to communicate to organs, trying to communicate to the circulatory system. Brain's trying to communicate to the glandular system, which controls hormone release, mood, emotion, all these things.
Yeah.
Things start falling apart, but it's so prevalent that they call it normal. It's really just accepted in our society, and a lot of it's actually very correctable at its cause. And then you set a baseline once you correct it, and then you got to build on top of that.
Yeah, and I could put it in like car terms. Like you get a brand new car, you're going on the highway, you hit a huge pothole, it throws your front end out of alignment, and it's going to eat your tires super fast. You got brand new tires in a brand new car, but your alignment got knocked off by an impact or like an injury or whatever might have happened, and then eat your tires, and the car's brand new.
Right. You run a car out of alignment.
Yeah.
It's gonna fail on you at some point.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the point of chiropractic. And to use a car analogy, it's often it's also assumed pain is a problem.
Yeah.
No pain, no problem. Yeah. And with chiropractic, it's even when you feel amazing, we still want to check to make sure that you're going to stay amazing. And if you were to tape over the little gas gauge on your car, you could be doing 80 miles an hour, going, everything's great.
Yeah.
The car's running perfect. And you're like 5 miles from being out of gas on the side of the road, stranded, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this is where when we do want to make sure people feel good and function good and everything works right and communicates right. When that's also happening, we also want to check and make sure that, and this is sort of that preventative care you were bringing up, that we want to make sure that people stay functioning at the high capacity.
Yeah.
Most people, you've been to my office, you've been adjusted. We do the arm tests and these kinds of things.
I was going to bring that up.
Right. And so we use applied kinesiology, and it's these nerve and muscle tests. And it's always shocking to people when they see one arm that's weak, and then we make our adjustments, and then you're rock solid both sides.
Yeah.
And what that shows us is that most people really don't even have to do more than what they're doing. They just have to make sure that their body can actually utilize all of this strength and intelligence that's within it, and not overuse energy just to do simple tasks. And that's what happens when the body's out of alignment.
Yeah, totally, man. It really wears you out. I could see, like, being on fire, anything life related, like just, even just walking yourself down the hallway, if things are out, that's more energy you have to spend to get, one foot in front of the other. Well,
and that brings up a good point too, and I'll speak about fires. You'll speak a lot better about it. Truth be told, I'm
turn my
like
fan
set
up.
Yeah. I'm not a firefighter, but we take care of a lot of fire and rescue and police and emergency services. And so dealing with something like the mentality of going into a fire. Grant, like I said, I have not done it, but just
you've been around
to
a little bit,
conceptualize it. The body works in two main systems. You've got your sympathetic stress state and your parasympathetic relaxed state. Right now, this is parasympathetic.
Yeah.
This is relaxed.
This is nice.
Yeah, your body doesn't feel threatened, because we have to remember that as advanced as we are as a people, we still have primitive brain thinking. So the primitive brain is two guys sitting in an Airstream just having a nice conversation, nothing really to worry about. We don't feel threatened. There's nothing dangerous here. That means that the body can operate in a parasympathetic state. What that means is digestion occurs properly, hormonal release occurs properly, heart and lungs are functioning at a normal capacity. Well, if you got a call right now, hey, emergency, we need you here now, the body will shift into that what's called sympathetic state. And sympathetic is what's called a stress state, but this is a heightened awareness state. And this is the primitive brain of you're out and you hear some branches breaking and you see a giant bear and you go, oh, I got to get out of here, right? And what happens is the body dumps adrenaline, right? And dumps cortisol. And all digestion shuts down. Heart rate increases because your brain starts to go, listen, I dig that you just ate an apple, but we're going to save that energy of digestion for survival, right? Sympathetic is a survival state. And because of that, you have your adrenaline and all these things. Now, adrenaline, cortisol is also very inflammatory for the body. But in the moment, it's essential, right? It's your break in case of emergency reserve tank.
Yeah.
And this is where you hear stories of people like lifting a car off their child and superhuman feats is what it seems like. And that's what adrenaline is for.
Yeah.
Our society has sort of found itself in a position, whether you are on a fire in an emergency or not, with these little phones we have, and people are just sort of doom scrolling all day, we sort of have found ourselves in a pretty perpetual sympathetic state.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is it is important to have adrenaline and cortisol, all these things in an emergency. When you live that way, it becomes incredibly inflammatory, incredibly degenerative. Cortisol degenerates parts of the brain that deal with short-term memory. It's trying to scrub your brain of like feeling terrible.
Yeah.
Well, your adrenaline comes from your adrenal gland, right? And your adrenal gland is finite. At some point, it runs out of gas.
Oh.
And what ends up happening is you see someone hit a wall or fall off a cliff on like a Wednesday. They're like, oh God, this week's taking forever. I'm dragging ass. I can't do anything. Well, they're probably in a pretty bad stage of adrenal fatigue.
Oh.
And what ends up happening, though, in that sympathetic state is with that overproduction of cortisol and adrenaline, you get, again, glandular disorder, no digestion going on. People then, all of a sudden, you can't really get deep, restful sleep with adrenaline pumping through your body.
No.
Without digesting proper, you're not taking nutrients in. You end up getting these like anxiety waves and this kind of thing. So you end up with this sort of mental, emotional state where the body also has guarding patterns. It starts to try to protect itself.
I was thinking probably holding on to fat and everything else.
Oh,
too,
yeah, everything. So you end up getting very little sleep, very little nutrient intake, crazy oxygen patterns, crazy mental, emotional pattern. And then that sort of becomes the baseline, is that people live in this stress state and you end up overusing all this energy just to do simple tasks. It's incredibly fatiguing and degenerative for the body. And the beauty of chiropractic is beyond the musculoskeletal work, which, by the way, for something like the military, most soldiers that get sent home because of a musculoskeletal injury. So backpacks too heavy for too long, hiking for however long, sleeping on cots or on the ground. Yeah. They're getting sent home for stuff that's actually fairly correctable, not a gunshot wound, not a laceration. It's a musculoskeletal injury. So that's one side of it.
Yeah.
But the other side is then you live in this sympathetic state all the time. And what it is a survival state. The body does not adapt to its environment. It becomes survival mode. Chiropractic, through the adjustment, is as we clear interference from the body can then communicate at a higher capacity and go, oh shit, actually, I'm not in trouble.
Yeah.
I was at one point, but I'm not now. I don't have to just live in this survival mode. Begins to shut down adrenaline, cortisol, re-regulate all the organ function, digestion, sleep patterns, all these things start to come back normally. And the body then can function at its peak potential, even through minor inconveniences. So you get cut off at a stoplight, right? So like you go, that's just a jerk driving like a jerk. You're not in danger. You're not in trouble, right?
Yeah.
And the body can then adapt to stress a lot better which is vital for our survival.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because otherwise, if you overreact to everything, like you said, it's just going to build and build, and you're in a bad way.
And we see more and more. I don't know how old you are. I just turned 40 last year, but we see more and more people over 40 and going every other commercials about fatigue issues, adrenal fatigue.
Yeah, testosterone.
Testosterone, erectile dysfunction, sexual dysfunction is becoming more and more prevalent for guys, obviously, especially over a certain age. And it's one of those things where like, oh, you're just getting old. Yeah. It's like, well, sort of. But if you're getting old in a sympathetic state with miscommunication in your system, especially something like, for one, atlas up at the top, but hips, pelvis, all this, if the hips are all swayed out or kicked up or, shifted, these are the nerves that go directly to digestion, sexual function, excretory function. Yeah. And all of a sudden you got all these little problems and there's a different specialist for each one. And all of a sudden you're on 5 or 7 pills just to function. We're not even talking about the pain control. We're just talking about just so you can shit right.
Day to day.
Just so you can, lay with your wife. Right? It's like all these things come up.
Yeah.
And you're on all these, oh, this is my life now. And it's what we describe it, and this is the way we describe it to kids, actually, is it's like if you had a garden hose and just step on it, you're going to get this little trickle of water. Yeah. You can get a bigger hose. You can work with a smaller garden. You can do all kinds of stuff. But what we say is, well, we take the boot off the garden hose.
Yeah.
Or fire hose in your case.
Yeah, totally. Take the kink out.
Take the kink out and get full flow of communication through the body and watch what it's capable of and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's smart, man. And for like just my through my life and experiences of being out of alignment, when I was smoke jumping, it was in how fast it can happen. It was probably a trickle effect to where like I was slowly getting headaches and getting more pain in my neck, but I didn't really notice it. And then all of a sudden, like halfway through the season, and I'm in my second year smoke jumping, I'm feeling like invincible. I'm in some of the best shape of my life, and I'm like, man, my head. Everything else felt great though. Yeah. And then went to a chiropractor in West Yellowstone, and he adjusted me. And what ended up happening was, I can't remember if my shoulders were pulling in or if it was getting pulled back from the heavy weight. If I was overcompensating, I started like really getting some tension in my chest or back. I don't know which one, but whatever. One of them was putting a lot of tension on my neck, and so I had to go back a few times. And then after getting adjusted and adjusting my pack a little bit better and not wearing it for a little while, like it went away. You know, and no pills, no nothing.
Right, and there's a tough mentality, and I think and I might be totally wrong. You can correct me on this, but with like I said, with military, with emergency services, police, firefighters, there's sort of, I say this politely, there's sort of a badge of honor with being slightly injured.
Oh, there is, for sure.
Sort of like, I'm tough as shit. Like, I'll fight through anything, which is amazing. And you are tough as shit. But I've talked to a lot of military guys that I take care of where it's sort of like, well, we don't go to doctors because we can often be seen as a liability, even if it's a chiropractor. But it's why you don't go see a shrink. It's why you don't go see your doctor, because you're like, oh, so-and-so's at the doctor. Something must be wrong with them. Yeah. Can I count on them later? Yeah. And it's very real for some people. The way we look at it is, sure, I get the mentality, especially when you have to rely on all of the people around you with your life. The way we look at it, though, is with chiropractic, and the reason I'm so glad I can come on here to really explain that by no means is it pain control. By no means is it a liability issue. In fact, a lot of our patients are what's called wellness care. They're just there to make sure that they get the most use out of their system possible. It's with athletes, we call it the best legal performance enhancement you can get. Yeah. Because it's taking all of what's already in you and just making sure that you're getting every last drop of it when you need it. Yeah. And that's something that everybody benefits from, even as infants all the way up through elderly. Everybody has more potential in their system than they realize, and we're just helping you tap into it so you can go stronger for longer. And that's the ultimate goal of chiropractic. Yeah, is making sure that system functions properly.
Yeah, man, I got a couple of things there. Like I meant to intro us as like health and wellness, because it's such an important thing, especially in the fire world and in life in general. And then like you said before, like primary care, like it's not. I'm trying to think of another like something that people wouldn't really do, like acupuncture or something maybe, where it's like I've been meaning to try it, but it's more like not as crucial to my health.
Because it's a nice to have, not need to have.
Yeah, where I think, changing that mindset, and I grew up with chiropractic. So my dad was a chiropractor, or was a carpenter, and one of his best friends is a chiropractor. So like he would go all the time, and I'd see him, and my dad was just as guilty as anybody. Like he'd be like bent over like an old man, and he was late 20s and 30s, and then he'd go see his chiropractor Tom Searcher and get straightened up, and then he'd be back to normal until he wore himself down again, and it should have been doing it more regular.
Well, and that's the other thing is unlike like the dentist, or you go once or twice a year or whatever.
That's what I think people see it as, right?
People are like, okay, I have a headache, I'll go get adjusted.
Yeah,
because I've tried everything. Usually it's, and I'm not ignorant to the process, usually it's I've tried everything, I guess I'll try chiropractic.
Yeah.
And there's some people too, they're like, oh, I'm a little scared of it, I don't want you to go messing with my neck. Or, to clear it up, because we hear this a lot, I don't mess with anything. No. We know exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
And also people have seen too many Steven Seagal movies. There's no neck break.
Exactly.
That's not a real thing.
Yeah.
But people go, I've tried everything, I guess I'll go try a chiro, see if he can knock out this headache. And the problem with that is, chiropractic is very great for headaches, and there's a good chance that after one adjustment you do feel better. That doesn't mean that the cause of what's going on is corrected.
Yeah.
It's almost the equivalent of just taking a bunch of ibuprofen. It's what we call Band-Aid care. It's just, this hurts, fix this real quick, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
You have this dynamic processing system that's always running and adapting, like I've sort of beaten down already, but we want to make sure that it continues to adapt and process properly.
Yeah.
But the body works in patterns. So outside of direct major trauma, if you're coming down a rope and fall and land on a tree stump and you go, oh, I jacked my hip up, that's pretty directly causing that hip problem.
Yeah, you can
you landed on it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
This sort of insidious care where it's like it sort of builds over time, and all of a sudden it's like a headache once in a while, once a week, every day, chronic. Now it's like I can't function without some kind of intervention.
Yeah.
That's a pattern. These things build over time. Now, in your line of work, it's pretty obvious where the strain and stress comes from, but you could have fallen out of a chair when you were 4 years old, shifted a hip, shifted a vertebrae in the neck and the body, just enough that it's out of alignment, and the body then adapts around it. And if it adapts for the next 15, 20 years, you could be 24 years old and all of a sudden start expressing all these symptoms that you would when you're 64, and then you're doing hard work like this. You go, oh yeah, it's hard work. Of course I'm like this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's, well, I have a headache today, get rid of it today. And we might be able to, but the reason we do want to see the consistency is the body operates in patterns, and patterns are time and consistency. That's training. That's how you do anything, is time and consistency. So what we tell patients is, look, we're going to get you tuned up and adjusted. You're going to feel better, but the goal here is to actually create stronger structure and stronger function, and that takes time.
Yeah.
And truth be told, and you might get some feedback from this interview that, oh, I went to a chiro, I felt worse, or I went to him and I didn't feel anything. And these are important topics because growth, getting stronger, doesn't always feel good. You go to a gym, you get a hard workout in, you don't always feel amazing. In fact, you're like, oh my God, everything kind of hurts.
Yeah, especially the next day, you're like, ugh.
Right. So getting stronger doesn't feel great. But when we're moving structure inside the body, so you adjust a vertebrae, reset a shoulder, a hip, you're changing that structure and function. Body has to adapt to that. Some muscles that have been relatively tight are starting to release. Some muscles that have been totally dormant start stretching.
Yeah.
It's not always the most comfortable thing in the world to get stronger, to rebuild structure. So to those out there who may have gotten adjusted and go, oh, wow, it really hurt the next day. Technically, that's a good thing. Assuming they're doing the right adjusting.
Yeah.
That's a good, there's what's called productive pain, and it's an odd concept. And it means that you are going through this process that is uncomfortable, yet still essential and helping you get stronger.
Yeah.
And that's what sometimes trips people up too with chiropractic.
I can see that, especially folks who haven't had like grow up with an athletic background. Like athletes are used to being sore, I think. So it's like, yeah, I did something yesterday. But like folks who maybe didn't have the athletic background and do go see like you or a chiropractor and have that soreness, like something didn't go right. It's like, no, it went right. That's the feeling you get, And like you said, like it sucks because if I haven't worked out in like even a couple weeks, I'll go hit my same routine and my meathead brain takes over and I'll go probably harder than I should, and I'll wake up super sore the next day. But actually, I like it because I'm like, it means I did something. I feel it,
Yeah, because symptoms sometimes are challenging to read. You look at this time of year, all the pollen, everything's coming out. We get patients coming in going, "Doc, I'm really sick," and I go, "Well, what's going on?" "Oh, my eyes are watering, my nose is stuffed, my throat's tight. I'm sick." And I go, "Well, who told you that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's all the commercials out there. I want to be running through a field with the sun shining, and I'm sick." And I go, "Well, let's break down these symptoms, right?" It sounds kind of odd, but most allergies too it's a miscommunication in the body. So if you breathe in, if pollen was the problem, everybody would be affected.
True.
Not everybody is affected, so certain people have a miscommunication with reading pollen.
Yeah.
We're glossing over this. Not very scientific. This is just the general concepts of allergies and sickness, right?
Yeah.
So if you breathe something in that your body doesn't recognize, and as a defense mechanism, it starts watering your eyes, because pollen's coming in three ways, right? Eyes, nose, mouth. These are the portals of entry.
Yeah.
So it goes, whoa, I don't know what this is. Let's stop the process. Your eyes water so it drains out whatever's coming in. Your nose clogs so you can't breathe any more of this stuff in.
Yeah.
Your throat tightens. It's trying to protect you from something it thinks is noxious, right?
Yeah, trying to keep it out.
To me, that's not sick. You're not sick for that. That's your body's secondary defense system. Primary would be, oh, yeah, this is pollen. I know what this is. I'm good. Yeah, let's keep going. But it doesn't. So secondary defenses go shutdown mode.
Yeah.
What do people do, though, is they start using the eye drops to clear their eyes out.
Yeah,
nasal decongestions and mucus thinners, right?
Yeah.
Vasodilators. So they're just trying to open all these pathways back up, and the body's like, "What are you doing?" I'm trying
fighting the body.
I'm trying to shut this down so I can get a read on what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Now there are obviously irritants, and things will close up because it's irritated. I'm talking about just the initial wave of pollen where the body's like, "Hold up," and all we do is try to get rid of the body's natural defense system.
Yeah.
So with chiropractic, like my wife was terrible allergies when we met. Couldn't go out certain times a year.
Oh, geez.
We started doing upper cervical work, basically her occiput. So the skull, the bone in the back, the little bony ridge you feel back there is the occiput. Her skull was off axis. So what's called the foramen magnum, it's that soft spot in the base of the skull there. Foramen magnum was impacting the brainstem, and that was causing a miscommunication. We started clearing that out for her regularly. Her allergies have resolved. She doesn't take anything. She goes out all year long. She literally couldn't go out certain times a year when we met. So
that information right there, my friend, I think is going to be a game changer for folks listening, dude.
Well, yeah, because what you end up doing is just crushing Flonase or, to be honest, I don't even know the names of these drugs. I try not to focus on. But people will know what I'm talking about. All the sinus and allergy and all this stuff.
All the commercials.
It will blow your mind how correctable a lot of that is.
Oh, man, it's amazing. Because most people like the natural remedies, honey.
Yeah. Oh, local honey's great.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's only chiropractic, nothing else. What I'm saying is, let's look at it the other way. Somebody hates pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
They do all the natural shit without chiropractic yet. They eat properly. They're taking homeopathic remedies, taking good supplements, eating whole foods. They exercise, they meditate, they do yoga, they do everything right.
Yeah.
But their system has never been cleared, and they've got interference to their system. Even the good things aren't as productive as they should be.
Yeah.
And then they become sort of in this little trap of just constantly trying more new thing. What we're saying is get yourself cleared out. This is sort of non-traumatic care. Get yourself cleared. Then go do all the good things that you should be doing, and they will be more effective and more efficient.
Yeah, the local honey and all those other things like you said. Meditation, sauna probably.
A sauna's great. Yeah, we got a sauna. We love it.
Same.
But you gotta set a baseline for success first, and then you build on top of it, right?
Yeah, more tools for your
And this
toolbox.
is what people see. So it's like an allergy. We've had people we adjust, and they stand up and just toss their cookies, and you're like,
really?
"Oh, doc, I'm so sorry. The adjustment made me sick." And you're like, "No, it's just what sickness really is if your body is not adapting to its environment."
Yeah.
So if you have a bunch of cruddy, toxic crap in your system, your body isn't recognized, it doesn't even know what to do with it, and it sits there and festers and then becomes a problem. That's sickness.
Yeah.
If I adjust you and your body goes, "Oh, wait a second, I don't want any of that in there," fastest way is up, you throw it up, that's not sick. That's a healthy response. Your body is removing toxins from your system that it previously wasn't even registering.
Wow, yeah.
That's positive.
Yeah.
But if you look at it on paper and go, "Oh, I got adjusted and threw up. That shit is terrible and I hate it and it made me sick," we're looking at it wrong. It's literally inspiring a health response.
Yeah, purge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, and I was thinking too, like with all that information you're given too, is like think about the people who are like the most high functioning people on the planet to me are like athletes, right? Because your body's got to be functioning at a very high level, and your brain's got to be functioning at a very high level because you got to make these split decisions in sport. And most of those, I would say probably all those athletes get adjusted. They do stretching. They have these routines that are like part of their wellness plan to keep them at that high level. And for like, why can't normal people like me and you do it? You know, like that. And I'm always telling myself like I need to stay with my chiropractic care. You know, come see you more often, and also hot yoga and all the other things and eating healthy. And like, it's not just one thing like you were kind of saying. It's all these things. But if you're missing one, then these good things aren't as good. You know,
right? And to your point, at this stage, I'm fairly certain just about every pro team, every solo pro athlete has every team has a team chiropractor. Every athlete has a chiropractor.
Yeah.
You'll see it now at like the US Open and PGA. Guys are getting adjusted on the fairways and stuff like that. And tennis players, Djokovic and these guys are getting adjusted on the court.
Yeah, right next to it.
Everybody has a chiropractor. And to look at it as if health is like a giant wheel, chiropractic is the hub of that wheel. Then the spokes are all the good things. So if you don't have a hub and you just have spokes, you got a wonky wheel. It's not going to work right.
Yeah.
So chiropractic, like I said, just to read it sets a baseline. Just let's see what your system's capable of, then add to it.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's pretty easy to throw yourself out of alignment too. Like, you know, if you're like, cause you said like routines, and if you're, you know, like working out, and I try to do like a balance, like push pull regimen, you know, if I'm doing chest, I'm doing back. So you get those push pull, you know, modalities, I guess, or, you know, muscle growth. So I'm not pulling stuff out, but I mean, still I can pull something out, you know, like, and then, you know, you keep working out. And like what I had when I first saw you, I think, was the shoulder deal where, you know, you did the test on me, and this one's going up and this one was not, you know, and I can imagine like Djokovic or, Nadal or some, you know, tennis player, if they had that going on with, you know, one arm, their backhand or their forehand is gone, you know, like that, they're going to lose that match.
Yeah,
you know?
You lose range of motion, you lose functionality. You know, the one thing that we adjust more than anything on athletes, on firefighters, emergency service, on military, and it's kind of, it shocks them a little bit because I think we assume that like the hip is like a big adjustment, the neck is a big adjustment. The thing that messes the most people up in the most amount of ways that sort of flies under the radar is rib function. So like I do a lot of rib work, and just hearing that, I'm going to guess most people are envisioning these big long ribs, and they go, he just moves these big ones. Not even the lower ribs. The first rib lives around the neck like a little collar. So it works kind of like the CV joint on a car, helps with the tire going up and down. So what it does is it helps with the arm motion, right, and neck stability. Yeah. And it's this tiny little collar of a rib, and it sits right up around here. So when a lower rib goes out, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this, listeners probably experienced this, when a posterior lower rib goes out, it feels like a knife is in your back. Pretty pinpoint, pretty shocking. Yeah. You kind of rub up against a tree or like over a pack or something, you kind of get to jam back in. Anterior ribs, where they fit into the sternum, if one of those ribs goes out, it feels like someone's sitting on your chest, feels compressive. The first rib doesn't really do either of those things. And this is why it's so important to get that checked. That first rib, when it bucket handles up, and that's from shouldering a saw, sleeping funny, that's from slipping with your arm out and it gets jacked up like this.
Yeah.
That little rib kicks up, it gets trapped in the muscle structure above it, the trapezius muscle.
Yeah.
So if it's jammed in the trapezius, for one, you're going to feel like head, neck, shoulder, back tightness. You can get all those things massaged, acupunctured, injected, muscle relaxers, all of it. Never really resolves. Oh. It also gets up into what's called the brachial plexus. And these are the nerves that come out the base of the neck. They go through the shoulder, down through the arm. But this is C5, 6, 7, T1. So you're looking at head, neck, jaw function, some glandular function, thyroid function, upper parts of the respiratory, cardiac function. So we've seen that little rib, this little rib that just kicks up, and it's not a gunshot, it's not sharp pain where it's like, oh fuck, something's wrong.
Yeah, got me.
It just sort of tilts up there, and it sort of hides in this like, oh, shoulder, neck tight. Of course my neck's tight. I work hard. Of course my shoulders are tight. I've been carrying a pack.
Yeah.
Of course my back's sore. I've been sleeping on the ground. That little thing sits up there. We've seen it cause what appears to be carpal tunnel. So people get these carpal tunnel surgeries that are not necessary. Carpal tunnel is that little groove in the wrist here that collapses. Usually it's either something like the first rib sitting into that brachial plexus that affects the whole arm, or elbows. Like if you look at these like chopsticks, these will start to widen out, these pinch in.
Yeah.
I've never heard of any surgeon ever going, before we cut you open and change your life forever, let's just check the alignment of the elbow or the shoulder or the rib, right? Yeah. So that rib, it'll kick up. If it gets up into that thyroid area, you get thyroid dysfunction, which people blame on all kinds of stuff. And you change your diet, they get them removed, all these things.
Yeah.
Migraines, TMJ, and people are doing all kinds of stuff for that. They go to all their specialists and everything. Nothing works. Gets into the upper respiratory cardiac. So all of a sudden you get shortness of breath or asthmatic-like symptoms, change in heart rate. So then you start getting what feels like fatigue issues because oxygenated blood is fuel for the body. And this one little rib just sort of unhinges and just the whole thing collapses. And all of a sudden you have this whole list of shit going on. And because of those things, you start going into that sympathetic state. You're not sleeping. You're not digesting. You're anxious. You're in pain. And what happens? You go, oh, yeah, well, I work really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, people rely on me. And this is the stress of life. This is what I deserve.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, well, sort of.
Yeah.
You do work really hard. You deserve praise and adulation. You also deserve to live clear and connected. And we have people that they go, no, I've been to a chiro. Nothing changed. The unfortunate reality is ribs are really hard to work on. Not even a lot of chiropractors work on ribs.
I was going to say, it could be the chiro too,
and
right?
you go, I've got my neck adjusted. I got my back adjusted. Got my shoulder adjusted.
Yeah.
Nothing really changes. So that chiropractic stuff doesn't work. And I always tell people, and I speak all over the country. I speak at a lot of schools and students and stuff. And I go, chiropractic always works. It's the removal of interference from a communicating system. When I say it always works, this is not Dr. Austin Davis' opinion. This is universal law.
Yeah.
You interfere with any communicating system, it becomes dysfunctional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So chiropractic, being the removal of interference, always works. Chiropractors are people.
Yeah.
People are fallible.
Fallible. Yeah.
And I've thankfully, chiropractors I still put above just about all other doctors, but unless they're really addressing these super specific things, sometimes it can go overlooked. So the reason we do so much of this rib work for athletes, for emergency services and fire and police and military, and hell, for teachers and nurses and service industry, is because these little components that get overlooked can really be the key to unlocking tremendous potential. And the amount of surgeries we've helped prevent,
I bet.
The amount of pharmaceutical use we've helped prevent, to be honest, the amount of PT we've helped prevent. And PT is good. I like PT because it's not invasive and it's not chemical.
Yeah.
The issue though with PT is that if you are doing physical therapy on a system that's not aligned properly, you can be strengthening negative patterns. Yeah. And although you're getting stronger and you're feeling better, it can still leave you with deficiencies that are correctable.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a hot topic because PT is amazing. PT is great for like neuromuscular re-education. You're in a traumatic injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to help you learn how to walk again and balance and all of these things.
Yeah, retraining.
Retraining is so essential. And to make all of that even more effective, we got to make sure that you're in alignment. Something like the occiput, like we were talking about earlier, that cerebellum that sits in there is a gyroscope. And if that's off and your balance center's off and you're going through PT, it's going to be even more challenging than it needs to be.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, man. And then like on your point with the different chiropractor, you know, like
Right.
for folks like to me it's like a barber, right? Like you're gonna have like you know, yeah, like I mean I got a weird head, so like you know once I find a good barber, I'm like I'm sticking with you because you're like molding the haircut to my head, you know, and like kind of same with my chiropractor, you my man, because like once I found you and I'm like, wow, yeah, we're like talking kind of the same language, and I'm getting good results, and and you're still passionate about what you do. But if you run into somebody who's not anymore, like, you know, even like, not to throw my grandpa under the bus, but he was a barber, and at the end he had like 3 cuts, you know, and that's what you were getting, you know, and that's, you know, it's just normal humans, you know, so it's like, maybe try a different chiro, you know.
Oh, and that's why that's that chiropractic. Always where chiropractors are people is that I'm a chiropractor. Yeah. I don't just walk into any old office and go, "Oh, you're a chiropractor too? Tune me up."
Yeah.
There are certain people that just I resonate with better. And I'm not saying that the ones I don't are bad chiropractors. It's just not a fit for me.
Yeah.
And there are people that I went to a chiro, it wasn't right. That one might not have been right, but what they're practicing is right for you.
Yeah,
it's just finding the right application.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, folks being a little more patient with it. I think people are so quick to like you mentioned earlier, like the quick fix, right? So it's like, man, things take time. Like, example for me was when I was running college track and I got really serious with it. My hamstrings grew like crazy because we were doing weights in the morning and then running at night and then sprinter. So like I was building these big muscles and my quad wasn't keeping up. So, and you kind of mentioned earlier with that gal's ankle. So my hamstrings are pulling so hard on my back that like it felt like I got hit by a car one day. Just all of a sudden, like I didn't feel like a buildup. I mean, I could probably like if I'm really tuned in, I could probably feel the tension starting to build. Yeah. But like I could barely get on my desk at school one day, and I was like, I don't know what happened. Like it felt like I got hit by something, and then that's all it was. Is my hamstrings were a lot stronger than my quads, so the balance was off, and then it just started pulling everything down. You know?
Right. Yeah. It's I grew up playing hockey on the East Coast, and I still play hockey here in Missoula.
We got a game tonight, eh?
I got a game tonight. Actually.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, what team are you on?
I'm on the Osprey. I'm trying to think.
Oh, I think we played you guys last week. Are you with? Anyway.
Yeah.
We're the Urban Achievers.
Oh, yeah.
We played you last week.
Oh, did you? Yeah, I missed that game. God, I've been sick, so like that's my first game back in a while. So
there's probably a place you should stop by. I believe it's Life Chiropractic.
I know. Well, that's with the Crohn's deal,
So even something like Crohn's, it's
a good segue
based
here.
on systemic communication. Yeah. And to be clear too, there's no adjustment for Crohn's. There's not like a Crohn's button where you're like, I'll adjust this and Crohn's goes away.
Yeah. Bing.
There's adjustments that clear interference, that increase communication, so that if you have a greater capacity to function through Crohn's, you get that. And that's the ultimate goal too. And the story I was going to tell about hockey is, so I grew up playing hockey. I was a goalie. I don't play goalie anymore because I ended up with a pretty severe neck injury from playing from goalie. Yeah, a compression fracture of mine. So I broke my neck playing hockey as a kid. And I was losing the use of my arms and wasn't functioning. Everything was shutting down. And my father's a chiropractor. My grandfather was involved with chiropractic. So they wheeled me into the hospital there, and I had all my gear on. And they took the x-rays, and they said, look, we found the problem. It's this vertebrae. We can fuse it. We can fuse metal to both sides. I was like 12 or 13 years old.
Oh, no.
Hadn't hit a growth spurt. I was like 5 feet tall or something like that. Yeah. My father's like, well, look, I'm a doctor. Can I look at these x-rays? And he's like, well, what about the vertebrae above and below it? Those are out of alignment. If you fuse those, what happens? Yeah. And the doctor was like, look, man, and this is small town Connecticut, local hospital. And he's like, look, we found the problem. We can fuse it or not. What do you want to do here? And he's like, if you fuse those vertebrae out of alignment, that nerve pressure is going to exist for the rest of his life. And whatever those nerves go to will be slowly choked off for the rest of his life.
Like the pinch garden hose, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I go, what kind of life, what quality of life is that?
Yeah.
And so he signed me out as a primary care doctor, signed me out, and I had to wear this big brace thing, and I was like the new kid in school too, and I was like,
oh, awesome.
wearing this brace, but started getting chiropractic care for that. Now, it wasn't the big, like you see in TikTok and all the noises and stuff, really gentle techniques. And some people don't realize there's dozens of techniques in chiropractic. Like I had a 3-day-old baby in yesterday and an 89-year-old woman, osteoporotic woman. We can't adjust the two of them the same. No. So it's just the adjusting I got was really low force, no torque, just really simple adjusting. And my recovery process was the better part of a year and a half, 2 years. And there's no one quick fix for everything, and there's no one adjustment for everything, but it was just retuning the body, resetting, and was actually able to go play hockey again. So I went through chiropractic, went through some rehab.
Everything healed up?
Played chiropractic. Yeah, it was healed fracture, and went and played hockey, and first game back just absolutely shattered my ankle. I was like, no, maybe hockey's not for me right now, but it just, I'm speaking to the process of things, is that there are traumatic injuries that need time, they need communication, they need the ability to heal. Outside of the major traumas, like what we talked about too, is that even the day-to-day things, trouble sleeping, trouble digesting, trouble feeling connected to the world. And we see this a lot with people that do return home from conflict and these kinds of things, where your whole existence is with a team in the gnarliest shit you can imagine. You come back and you're sort of isolated, even with your family. You're isolated going, hey, you got to get milk. And you're like, milk doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Survival matters. The only thing that matters is, am I safe? Am I surviving? And when your whole existence becomes that, that's also the really challenging part, is that it's not an overnight process to shift that. Yeah. Right. And to feel safe and to feel respected and seen and feel like you're protected. Right. And someone's got your back. So those things too take time. And what I try to do is help patients build that internally, simply with just greater communication. Body's like, okay, I know I'm safe. I know I'm not in that environment. I know I'm in a new place. I am connected to something bigger than myself.
Yeah.
And I've seen it be an issue in the past, where that feeling of disconnect, isolation, or to feel valueless, because when you're in the thick of it, you're a valuable asset.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
And when you're not, it's like, well, do I have value? Like, what's my purpose here? Right. So that's a big part of it too. And most people wouldn't go, oh, hey man, you're not feeling value. You're not feeling connected. You should go see a chiropractor. Like nobody's saying that.
No one does.
But it has a direct impact on all of those concepts, simply with that innate intelligence and your ability to feel connected to yourself and to your source.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was part of the notes I had, is like the off-season blues, is because that is, like you said, you're a vital part of a team, you know, in the fire services, no matter what fire you're on, even if, you know, city fire department, you know, that's right. Year round, you don't have an off-season there, but like, you know, something happens and you get knocked out of the team for a little bit, you know, like injury, you know, like going to see you, you know, help get you back on your feet, and then help that alignment help you. And I think it helps you kind of digest what happened, right? Like, you know, like absorb it, and digest is not the right word, but you know what I'm saying? Like kind of absorb it, process it, adapt to it. Yeah, totally. And, you know, that's why it's like super important. And what you kind of mentioned too, like with the long term with your neck, you know, I think with fire folks, and especially fire folks, just because, you know, you got this long season and you may not be able to get into the chiropractor, but if you can, like, you know, get R&R days, 3 days usually paid off, if, you know, if it all runs right, and then, you know, go pop in and see like you real quick, or your chiro, and then, you know, try to keep it up. It may not totally fix it, because you're going to go be gone for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks again, but at least you can kind of keep it closer to center, you know, closer to your baseline, and then off season go in and see you and get back to alignment.
You know, before you go out into I don't know if you call it a conflict or a fire or something like this. Before you go out, do you check all of your gear to make sure it's operating properly?
Yeah. You want to make sure your saw is good. You want to make sure all your food and water and all the supplies that you're good to go.
Right. Know? Everything you got is put together properly, functioning properly. All we're saying is just just fucking do that with yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
I apologize if I keep cursing a lot. I'm from the East
totally
Coast.
fine.
But just do it for yourself.
Yeah.
You are a tool. You're a machine.
Yeah.
And I know guys that'll check all their gear I go hunt with. They'll check everything. I go, well, are you functioning properly?
Yeah,
And
how
I
are you
go,
feeling?
I don't really hurt. I go, well, let's check.
Yeah.
We're just checking our gear. That's all. That's all it is just check your gear.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're not putting yourself, it's what we call liability versus asset,
Yep.
right? Are you a liability or an asset? And if you go, I don't know, but we can find out.
Yeah, totally.
I can find out if your system is all out of whack, that you, no matter how strong you are, how built you are, how smart you are, if your shit is not clear and connected, you are a potential liability out there because there's a failing point.
100%.
Right. And that's same with your gear, same with everything. All I'm saying is let me check. Oh, you know what? You're all tuned up. You're lined up. You are now going to be more successful. You are now an asset to this group because we know you're clear and connected.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of like military terms, they talk about that too, is like if you aren't good, then how are you going to help anybody else?
Right.
If you can't even function, you can't help anybody else.
Ultimately, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what we look for.
Yeah, totally. And then you're touching on, the 89-year-old and the infant. And
Yeah.
For folks listening too, like not just, for fire folks, but for folks who maybe just had their brand new baby. I mean, I can't remember. I think ours was 2 weeks old or something. I think we came saw you or something. Like it was,
I think, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Our baby boy was really young, but also like he was, he wasn't able to poop. So,
Yeah.
because he was out of alignment. And like as soon as you adjusted him, he had a bowel movement and things were moving and he was less fussy because he was having, he was backed up.
Oh, sure.
And it's so easy, and people don't know. I don't think that's common knowledge. So people don't know about that.
Most of my phone is like poop emojis from parents. That innate intelligence I was talking about that exists within us exists from the moment of conception. Ultimately, the thing that drives me the most crazy, and this again a little off of fire topics, but for families this is important, is that somehow the infinite intelligence of the universe conspired to create this life in utero, and then as soon as it's born, apparently it's like the most helpless thing in the world.
Yeah.
And you go, well, that can't be. The intelligence behind it is great enough that this thing knows how to survive from birth. Now, thankfully, there's parents often to help it.
Yeah.
But latching problems, colic, fussiness, no sleep, not going to the bathroom, again, gets labeled as like, oh, this is baby stuff. Well, babies just don't know what they're doing. They're just a baby.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's an incredibly intelligent creation.
Yeah.
That just had to get pushed out of a human being into the world.
Yeah.
Whether it's cesarean or vaginal, it's large mass, small canal.
Yeah.
Doctors, if for anyone out there who's never seen a birth, use the head as a pulling point and pull that baby out. You look at the head compared to the cervical vertebrae, that head is going to manipulate those vertebrae into altered position.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say 10 out of 10 babies are born with some subluxation, something out of alignment.
Yeah.
And the human being a survival mechanism, we're adaptive creatures, will adapt to just about anything.
Totally.
So eventually it's going, look, my primary communication to my guts are not working.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to poop normally, but I'll get my secondary nerves, my tertiary nerves going. Well, once I'm so backed up, the doctor will give me a little laxative or something and we'll get a little bit of poop out, or eventually they'll just push a little bit out. But these are not normal baby things. Yeah. These are accepted baby things. Babies are designed to function at high capacity. They just went through significant major trauma to enter the world.
Yeah.
Just like anybody that goes through significant major trauma, check your gear. Are they clear and connected, or are they majorly interfered with? And then you're suffering the aftermath as a parent, going, oh God, babe, it's so tough to be a parent. These baby won't stop crying, doesn't sleep.
Not getting sleep, yep.
You talk to your parents about it. Oh, you were the same way.
Yeah, you're the same way.
You talk to your neighbor. Oh yeah, Billy, he still can't shit right.
Yeah.
It's like, so then everyone around you has this shared experience and you go, oh, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's just that chiropractic's not prevalent enough yet. And especially with something like pediatrics or infant care, when to adjust an infant, because they think like a Steven Seagal movie. We're like ripping heads off.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, gonna break my baby.
And you've seen it. It's about the amount of pressure to indent a marshmallow. It's a lot of pressure and pushing, and it's so gentle.
Yeah, and the relief is.
And it's almost instant as soon as you clear that system. And infants are like little live wires. You know pretty quick when something's off.
Yeah.
But you'll know pretty quick when it's back on. And you just click. And I'll tell parents when they bring in their kids, and I go, bring extra diapers.
Yep.
Bring extra clothes. Have bottles ready because they're going to want to feed. They're going to want to poop. They're going to sleep. They're going to blow through their gear. Like, be ready because this system, with all this potential energy, has been sitting there.
Yeah, kind of balled up like.
And they can't express themselves. So what they cry, right? And they cry. This kid's always crying. How do we get this kid to shut up a little bit?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, no, this is a cry for help. Baby's just going, something's not right. You got to fix this.
Yeah.
And in my experience, and I've only been doing this 15 years, and I'm only the Montana rep for the International Chiropractic Association. Yeah. And I'm actually on the Missoula board for maternal and child health.
Oh, really? Awesome.
I'm the first ever chiropractor to be on it. So I don't know much.
No, yeah.
But I know a couple things that rarely, if ever, in that developing system, and this is why chiropractic is so important, is that communication during development, where every day is so integral to that child's development.
Yeah.
Any interference will lead to dysfunction, and that interference is correctable. Rarely, if ever, is more chemical interference going to create greater systemic communication. It's just not how the body works.
Yeah.
And it'll get you through some rough spots, but you're potentially setting that kid up for a harder life later on.
Yeah, and the baby can only communicate one way. It's crying,
That's it. It just cries. That's all it knows. And eventually it grows out of, digestive problems, grows out of latching problems because they end up just getting bottle fed or force fed. And there's ways around everything.
Yeah.
But if we can allow that innate potential to really communicate, then you have, I don't know if you ever met my son. He's in the office sometimes.
Not yet, yeah.
He's 5 years old. He was a 10-pounder at birth. He was a big kid.
Yeah, it's big.
It's also because my wife was adjusted all through pregnancy to take it one step even farther back.
I was going to say full family.
During pregnancy is your developing life.
Yeah.
Seems like it would be important to make sure your body's communicating clearly to develop life properly.
Absolutely.
So we did a birth center birth, so no medical intervention birth, right? So I delivered my kid with a midwife.
That's awesome.
No drugs, no epidural, no nothing. 10-pounder.
Jeez.
Which my wife is like my absolute hero.
So your wife sounds tough as nails, man.
Her family's from Siberia and Russia, so it's tough as shit.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But she's like straight up my hero. Like watching front row seats, watching this happen, I was like, fuck, dude, you are amazing. You're an Olympian. So gives birth to this kid. We chose the route of no medical intervention, breastfeeding. As he was old enough to eat food, I have 3 freezers in the garage. It's what we call air, land, and water.
Oh yeah.
And he grew up as an infant. As soon as we could have solid foods with liver and heart and organ meat and bone broth, and I mean, it just only shit that we've touched or grown. Or we don't have chickens yet, so we get eggs from patients, stuff like that. So egg yolks were like one of his first things. And
yeah.
This kid's 5 years old. He writes little songs and sings them. Favorite thing in the world is getting out there to mushroom hunt with me. And
awesome.
He looks like he's an 8-year-old. Like he's built like a tank.
Yeah.
And he's huge. And so some of that's genetics, but it's also that from the moment of inception, we've had chiropractic clear and connected communication in my wife with no chemical interference all the way through birth, where he was brought into the world naturally.
Yeah.
And then not immediately, and this is hot button issue shit, but not immediately nuked with chemicals.
Yeah.
Breastfed, challenged, rolls around in the dirt, eats caterpillar, like challenged. The system needs to be challenged to grow. Yeah. That's all systems. These last few years, all the advice was don't challenge yourself. Just isolate, get away from everybody. Don't challenge yourself.
Yeah, get inside.
That's all patients. I go, as soon as they let everybody out, the sickness level is going to skyrocket in our communities because the body needs to be challenged to adapt. It's hyper intelligent. It forms antibodies when it's challenged. Nobody was challenging anything, and some still aren't, and they're weakening their systems, right? So you have a kid who consistently challenged, treated like a normal functioning kid,
and not interrupting the natural process, like a fever.
Right.
Everyone wants to
we
break
let
a
him
fever.
run his fevers.
Yeah.
We monitor it, but we let him run his fevers.
Yeah.
He's been in school now, preschool and then kindergarten. He has not missed a day of school. He gets a cold once a year, twice a year.
Normal.
That's what should happen.
Yeah.
That's not sick. I get a cold once a year, maybe. Your body needs to get challenged.
It does.
When you got a kid in your class who every 2 weeks is missing a day because of sickness or snot or headache or fever or upset stomach, or it has sensitivities to every food and every that is a system that's not the body's going, I'm trying to keep up, man, but I'm not getting enough output because things are so interfered with.
Absolutely.
Those are the kids that we got to get them cleared out, because they have just as much systemic potential as everybody else. They're not a weak kid. They just have communication breakdowns.
Yeah, totally. In fact,
there's congenital anomaly. Some kids are born, a heart valve didn't grow properly, a gland didn't form properly. There's limitations of matter.
Yeah.
But assuming everything designed and developed properly, and they're sick once a month or more, and we all have a friend, I'm sure, that their Instagram reels are like hashtag sick kid life,
yeah,
a little too consistently, and you're going,
like,
something you're doing is not working, or you just haven't tried what actually works. And I know we're off on a bit of a tangent here.
No, this is good. Like, this is what this podcast is about, man. It's covered all, because it's all health and wellness.
There's a lot of families out there that I feel are really struggling through a lot of stuff, and their support system are people that are struggling through the same shit. So it just becomes, this is normal.
Yeah, normalizing things that
everybody has this.
Yeah.
And we don't.
No,
not everybody
options.
has it.
Yeah, and knowledge, like you said, and information. It's just, and that's all it ever is, right? It's just like getting the information. If you don't have it, you don't know. And then, like you said, all of a sudden, that's your normal. It's your baseline. It's like,
right. And I want to reiterate, I'm not trying to make anyone wrong. Like, you're not doing anything wrong.
No.
I truly believe everyone's doing the best that they know how to do
with getting the information they have at that time.
Yeah,
right?
From themselves or from their like I said, their support system. So they are doing what they feel is right, and that's honorable.
Yeah.
It's just there are other ways of going about it, and I think it's time to start looking at those other ways, because if we don't have to chemically interfere with children, it seems beneficial on every level.
Absolutely. And to tack on that a little bit, and not to go too much on a tangent, to me, like I have a health and human performance is my bachelor's degree. So like I know, took human anatomy and physiology and, a few things with the body. And so I have a basic idea of how the body works. And the thing is, like you said, the chemical intervention, especially starting at such a young age, to me is not good, because your kidneys are brand new. Your liver is brand new and they're tiny. And then you're going to hit them with something that is foreign to the body. It just does not seem like a good way to go, and so that's my take on it,
Absolutely.
And and like you said, if more information out there, and then like you said, do what you want with it,
And that's based on my license, for instance, like I legally cannot tell people to take or not take any pharmaceutical. Like, I can't tell you to get off of drug. I can't tell you to not take something.
Yeah.
I don't study pharmacology for my license. Now, I study it just for my understanding of how the body works.
Totally.
But we don't take pharmacology classes. So someone may go, well, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You didn't even take pharmacology. Sure.
Yeah, you got me.
I've studied it for the last 15 years and have learned enough about it of how the body works. So like I said, I present information that I feel has worked for me and for my family. I present information that I feel based on logic works for me and my family.
Yeah, that's same with what I was talking about, the kidney development and stuff, it's like.
Right. And I just present information that scientifically works. And the funny thing about the brain is the brain's wired roughly 10-1 in terms of its neural capacity for emotion to logic. So it's the challenge is when you deal with infants, you deal with family, you deal with kids, that emotional component becomes very real. Yeah. And this isn't just with family, this is with every situation. Checking that emotional component, because your brain is wired 10-1 to be hyper emotional. kind of overshadows the logic component once in a while. And I think
100%.
we've all probably gotten a little hot-headed and done some things that you go, oh, logically that didn't make sense.
Yeah, I
but
get
in the
embarrassed about
moment,
later. Yeah.
in the moment, this felt right.
Yeah. Like,
And that's how it works. And like I said, everyone has to do what they feel is ultimately right for themselves and their families.
absolutely.
That's at the end of the day, that's it.
Yeah.
What we do is what we feel is right. The information I share is what I feel and know to be right. But yeah, at the end of the day, you got to do what you're most comfortable with.
Yeah, totally. And you're just offering another aspect of life. Like, here's what we did, and here's what's working, and here's the results.
Right.
You know, it's like a big experiment, but also but based on a lot of your knowledge and research. You know.
Right. And the thing of it is we defer to it sounds odd, but a simpler explanation to life.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know what they're whipping up in laboratories. I also don't know how, because this is the other thing that doesn't get talked about is you look at something like the FDA that approves
Everything.
You approve some drug, right?
Yeah.
Well, most people don't realize that each and every person, even if we look alike or sound alike, each and every person has a unique chemical, biological makeup.
Yeah.
Unique chemistry in their body, which means that if you put a chemical into it, it reacts very differently in one person to the next person.
Mm-hmm. I'm living proof of that.
Yeah.
With all the Crohn's medication.
Right. So if you see these commercials and that long list of may cause,
Everything I've ever taken.
it doesn't mean that one person's getting all those things. It means that on the people they tried it on, all of these things came up.
Yeah.
So for me, knowing that I don't know what's going into these little concoctions, I also don't know how my chemistry is going to interact with those concoctions,
Absolutely.
whether positive or negative. I go, okay, what do I know? What I know, and as we've talked about now, is I was designed intelligently. I have that intelligence within me at all times. I know that intelligence can be interfered with, and if left unimpeded, will be the greatest intelligence in the universe. So can I find those interferences and clear them?
Yeah.
Yes? Great. Now how am I functioning? Great. Do I feel a little weak? Get a workout in. Am I hungry? Eat real food.
Yeah.
There's
real
and
food's
you're
big
dealing
time.
with this with Crohn's. We just had a patient who's like, I think I have celiac and all this stuff. And I was like, I think you might have a problem with like glyphosate or something. Because my wife thought she was gluten intolerant. We went to Italy for a wedding.
Ate everything over there.
She ate pasta twice a day
Yeah.
for 2 weeks
No
and
problem.
never felt better.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, maybe it's this incredible shitstorm of chemicals are spraying over over everything. Everything's processed, everything's sprayed. And how you fuel your system is, again, like you'd put fuel in anything, is so important. And if you're just fueling your system with over-processed, over-chemical, over-radiated shit, it's going to be a problem.
It's something our body's not designed for, and it's killing. And to me, it's killing something that's carbon based, right? We're all carbon based life forms, you know, including bugs and everything, and
Right.
it's gonna kill that, but it's not gonna bother me that doesn't process. You know,
You know what? No one's ever said it that way. That makes the most sense. So
and, yeah, that was an epiphany I had at a very young age. I was
Right.
like, because my same grandpa barber, his neighbor had like all of a sudden this crazy aggressive cancer, and I was really young, and this is when like cancer was like death sentence, right? My mom was an oncology nurse, and it's like if you had cancer like at any stage, it was a bad
Right.
news in the 90s, and this fellow all of a sudden like overnight was riddled with cancer. It was like,
yeah.
but my grandpa had noticed a long time ago that he sprays everything, and I'm Native American, so like we come from Native American blood, and I'm only an eighth, so I'm not like a ton, but still like a very ancestral kind of belief in the family, and so my grandparents didn't spray anything, but they noticed he was, and he had a nice green yard, but man, as soon as he hit like 60, he was like lights out, he was done, It was like, so at that very young age, it's like, well, it's killing a bug, and if we're all made of the same things, I think I had like basic chemistry or something at that age, and I was like,
yeah, you look at the numbers of just about every illness in America. If we're at a point in our society where we are the most technologically advanced, the most scientifically aware, both medically and otherwise, every every category of disease and illness and sickness is on the rise.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
Everything. Sure, they're coming up with something for this. And so, everything across the board of all ages is on the rise.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, well, are we as a people just being born more and more deficient, potentially?
Maybe, yeah.
Have we increased the prevalence of chemicals and pharmaceuticals and petroleum-based products and microplastics and like everything across the board has also gotten more toxic.
Yeah.
And then when they go, it's coincidence. There's no correlation that we're spraying more and crazier shit on our crops. Yep. We're injecting more and crazier shit into our kids. There's no real food anymore other than stuff you grow yourself.
Yeah.
Everything you touch is synthetic. Like it's coincidence.
Yeah. It's just coincidence happenstance.
As a researcher, it's like there's no way that all of it is coincidence when you look at these parallel increases.
Yeah, and for me too, like getting Crohn's at such a young age, it was 2006 when I got diagnosed, and it was like I didn't know anyone who had it. Like I was the only person I didn't even know autoimmune diseases existed because they didn't really. And then when I did all the research, I'm like, where could this come from? Because you should do research because you should figure out how to cure yourself and figure out like where'd this come from. And no third world, there was no trace of it in any third world country. I'm like, wait, so Crohn's doesn't exist in third world countries, but in our first world country, we're advanced and have all these things. Like Crohn's is here. Like how, Right. And the only thing I could trace it back to is all the things that you just said was like, well, like we're processing, our farm, we're spraying our fields, we're getting these higher yields, all these genetically modified things. And it's like, well, they're not doing that in third world country. They're still doing things, basic as our ancestors did, and I was like, oh. And then I wanted to mention this earlier too, when you're talking about your son and the size difference. You hear about when Europeans first came to the America, and the size of Native Americans. Like there's that new movie with I can't remember, something, the Blood Moon or something, Flowers of the
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, and that tribe, I can't remember the name of the tribe, something with an O.
I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it either, but it's funny because like right before that movie came out, I just tripped onto these Native American tribe in the like Oklahoma area, and reports from like French trappers and stuff where like these people are easily 6'6" to 7 foot something, and they move athletically. They didn't say athletically; they had something like proportional. However they would describe their movements back in the day. But these giant humans that move like gracefully, and they're like, holy cow! And then you hear about these Europeans who came over, they're like 5 foot,
5'5".
Yeah, and looking like pale and not looking good, and because of living in the cities and all that stuff that they had going on versus like living off the land like the natives were, and not that there was like a lot of pharmaceutical intervention back then, but just the lifestyle, it started changing.
I would have to see what time that movie was made, but even then, they had, opiates and these kinds of things, and which is always shocking to me when people like if you had a drug dealer on your corner of your neighborhood selling opiates, you'd be livid. Yeah. But then you've got drugstores on every corner selling opiates. People are like, thank God. Yeah. Thank God we have all this access. Yeah. And like all of that stuff mimics street drugs.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's been, and sometimes I get a little cavalier with how I talk about it, and guaranteed you're going to get someone going, you don't understand, these drugs saved my life. And like I said, like you're going through, the medical world is designed for emergency services. Yeah. To save a life, essential. Yeah. Essential.
Yeah.
Day-to-day health and wellness is where I truly feel that they miss the mark, because they don't look at the body as a whole. Mm-hmm. They don't look at how everything impacts everything else. They don't look at is there trapped potential within this system that we can clear out? Yeah. It's symptomatic reactive type care. And that's where I have the issues that when people use that as primary care, it's missing the mark, and that's the challenge of it.
Yeah, and I was gonna say too, like kind of grading your intervention, right? Like you would start small. Like why would you go, like to surgery, like you were talking about with the carpal tunnel thing, which is just kind of normal how we operate now. It's like I'm in pain, I'll go see this specialist, and then surgery, instead of being like, oh, maybe this little rib is out and causing problems. Yeah. Because when you were talking about that earlier, I was thinking about all the old boys when I first got in who had carpal tunnel, and it's like maybe not, especially carrying the saw on the one shoulder.
Maybe not. Yeah, some, but maybe not. And look, surgery will always be there. Yeah. Drugs will always be there.
Yeah.
what I'm saying is let's just check
Check
your potential first.
Yeah.
Because if it does resolve, you're going to go, holy shit, thank God I avoided this life of drugs and surgery. I know people with 4 carpal tunnel surgeries, and we check the rib, and all of a sudden their fingers stop tingling, and they're like, why didn't nobody tell me this? Because when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You go to a surgeon, they're going to recommend surgery for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's one of those systems where it's like, just see what you're capable of. There's no downside to chiropractic. There's no negative side effects from chiropractic. It's either we can help you or we can help you, but you also need a few other things.
Yeah, totally.
And that's why drugs will always be there. Surgery will always be there. Before you go under the knife, before you start to really chemically alter your system, let's just check. Let's check.
Yeah, start small and check out those boxes. And then also, like, if you end up having to go all the way to a surgical intervention, then it's like, well, you covered all these other things, and then you probably learned something along the way to help recovery of that surgery, like going to chiropractor, PT, all these other things that can come in, you know?
Right, and the body's external checklist is often very different than the internal checklist. So although it's your shoulder that hurts the most, and we start adjusting you, this is when people go, I went to a chiropractor, my shoulder still hurt, nothing happened. Yeah. Okay, the liver has no pain receptors. So if you're waiting for pain, you're in like late stages of liver failure. Like that's not a responsible healthcare practice, right? Yeah. So I've cleared your system, your body, your brain and body are communicating more effectively than ever before. I dig that your shoulder hurts, but your body may go, oh shit, my liver's at half capacity. My kidneys are 75%. I'm going to send some energy to those areas, start repairing these vital organs first. And the patient, and this is where education is so important in chiropractic. I know great adjusters that don't educate their patients properly. And then when they get a perfect adjustment and their organs are now firing back on, their systems are kicking on, their glands are pumping, but the guy goes, yeah, my shoulder still hurts, so this didn't work. Yeah. And they disappear. And they're working better than ever. Their body is now more effective than ever, but they still have some shoulder pain. Yeah. Because we're still built of soft, squishy stuff that fatigues. And they may have a bursitis or a worn out rotator cuff or something. Yeah. Even in perfect alignment, there's going to be discomfort.
Yeah, totally.
But if they never understood the power and importance of a clear system, a sore shoulder becomes chiropractic doesn't work. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
That's a problem. Yeah, man. That's why I keep saying start small. Start with little things, and then like building the toolkit. Like we were talking, like hot yoga, like ice bath, all those things that are kind of coming popular now, which is wild because like I've been ice bathing since I was a little kid. Yeah. My great grandpa had a sauna, or has a sauna. We still have the place on the Missouri, and like as we're young kids, like we were always taught by my great grandpa, like go get hot, jump in the Missouri River, get cold, and we do it in the winter and then come back in, and which, I guess, which is kind of cool now that there's like more science behind it. We didn't know there's really health benefits. Maybe we kind of did, but we just did it, it was the thing.
Sure, he did.
Yeah, he probably did. Yeah. That's probably why we were doing it. And so like, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I don't want to miss anything either. Do you got more stuff you want to add?
I feel like we've touched on just about everything.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty good, and just kind of more of that health and wellness, just like folks that it's not a one-time fix. It's a constant upkeep.
Right, and that's life. That's all of life. I was talking to someone recently about shortcuts. Yeah, and sometimes a migraine pill or something like that feels like a shortcut. I know I could probably eat better. I know I could exercise more. I know there's more, but this thing is going to knock it out today, and then. And I was talking to him, I said, I heard somewhere once that there are no shortcuts in life. If there was truly a faster, more efficient, more effective way to do something, they would just call that the way. Yeah. And that whatever shortcut you think is out there, chances are ends up causing you more time, more energy, right? More headache down the road because you end up having to either redo something or something you missed. That there really are no shortcuts. There's improvements to the way. Yeah. But there really are no shortcuts. And if you convince yourself that there's a shortcut to health, wellness, mental well-being, emotional well-being, stability,
even success,
right? Success, it's going to potentially short-term feel like you're gaining something or making progress, but long-term
doesn't last.
And I'm going through this now. I had my last practice for 13 years. When we found out the reason we moved, that my son can't go to school in California because he's unvaccinated.
That's a shame.
They passed legislation for that.
That's nuts.
That's why we were living at the cabin that almost burned, and we came up here.
Yeah.
I got here after having been in this town for 3 days and decided I'd start over. I got to open a practice.
Yeah.
And if I had taken all of I was the highest volume, one of the most successful chiropractors in my last city, bravado here, being like, well, I'm the best.
Yeah.
I don't need to I would have been miserable going, where's I had to start over. Like I was a fresh graduate student of just singleness of vision, dedication and passion, and just telling the truth, getting into the community. Not as a salesman. I don't advertise. I don't have any marketing. I don't have any billboards, any Google. I don't advertise.
Yeah.
I've always tried to build as organically as possible, which means slow, steady growth. And what that is I get out and do things I love doing. I join organizations I love. We were at a BHA event last night, the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Oh, cool.
Went to a Trout Unlimited banquet 2 nights ago, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But it's just getting in, doing river cleanups, going to baseball, just getting into the community as much as possible.
That's the best way,
Just
man.
meeting people that I guess vibe with my energy, and they're like,
Yeah.
I've been thinking of going to Cairo. I met you. You're pretty cool. I'll go see you.
Yeah.
But it I could put a Google ad out, free visits, and everything is free forever, and get 100 new patients in a month, and that'd be nice for sure. But I don't know these people. I have no connection to a lot of these people, and it's an energetically challenging process.
Yeah.
So I go but it's quick.
Yeah.
It's a shortcut. Bang, shortcut.
Yep.
The energy expenditure that comes with that is extreme.
Yeah.
And this is real. And this is simply on a business side of things. This is not my squishy emotional side of things. This is business. Going out to just meet the people you resonate with, to be a part of the process, is slow, and it's slow and steady, and it's one day after another, and it's not all victories. It's there's an old saying, you either win or learn. There is no losing.
Yeah,
a lot of learning.
Yeah.
And just rebuilding, and it's slow and steady, man. And it just takes time. And the more time you give it, the better off you are.
Absolutely. And you're building a community then, because then you're building people that are, like in kind of the same wavelength as you, like you don't want echo chambers, right? You don't want the same brain coming in, but you want some people who are kind of on the same page as you and wanting to improve, right? Like, and that's my basic compass, right? Like if people I want to surround myself around, it's like, I don't want someone who's like me, like sometimes I don't even really like me that much, so like, I don't want to copy me, like I want someone who's smarter than me, who's got more drive than me, who's got more energy than me. I want to be around that person, because that person gets me going. Like, so that's like my compass, is someone who's looking to improve. Like in whatever facet of life that is, that's why I enjoy talking to you. It's like, and trying to build a community, and like, with this podcast, I'll have like something that's kind of flashy, and like I'll get some followers, and all of a sudden something will happen, and like that people don't maybe all agree with, and then slough off, and it's just like that little like up and down, but it's always going up a little bit, like a staircase, and I think that's the best way to go, because
that's the way I was taught is you lead with love, and you tell the truth, and it's hard to go wrong, and it's not always A to B, and it's not always like a greased track. But in the end, it always shakes out for the positive, and that's how we've always tried to operate. I pride myself on education in the office. Yeah. I love new patients that go, I don't want to be here. My wife's making me come in, or I've tried chiropractic, it doesn't work, or whatever excuse, are my favorite, because they were so close to the right thing.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't ever delivered properly. And that's the thing, is that, like I said, I do meditations every day, just mental work, get my mind right to be what we call giving, loving servant, just as clear as possible, to give as much as possible. There's a lot of people that need a lot of things, and for whatever reason was blessed with the abundance I have in my life. A lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. But if it means giving and loving and serving out of abundance, that's what I try to do all day, and educate, and just educate. Even if you're not my patient, I tell people, just use me as a resource. Reach out to me and say, hey, I live in Pittsburgh, but XYZ.
Yeah, questions. Yeah.
This isn't a whole like, come see Dr. Austin Davis at Life Chiropractic. This is just an awakening, just an awareness. Just be aware of what's out there. And if you have questions, ask them.
Yeah.
Because it's 2024. And with this phone, I can reach every corner of the map. There's no reason anyone should go, I didn't know X, or I don't know this. It's all available. It's just, there's a lot of gatekeepers, and my goal is to be the opposite. It's just ask me anything. Hell, call me up and challenge me. Challenge me on anything.
Yeah.
Ask me any question. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why. I support and love dialogue, or just yell at me. Call and yell at me.
Yeah. Well, don't do that.
I'm a good lightning rod.
Yeah,
I've been in healthcare long enough. Just whatever comes up, feel free to reach out and tell me, and we'll have a dialogue. I may be off on something. I love learning that I was off on something.
That's what I was going to say.
Because it's important. It's important to know these things.
It is.
That echo chamber where everything you say is right all the time.
Not good.
Very little progress comes from that.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Just give me whatever you got. And if you have questions, I'm easy to find. I'm on the Instagrams.
Yeah, I was going to say.
At the chiropractor. And the little at symbol.
Yeah.
The chiropractor. And then Missoula Chiro. Reach out anytime.
And then Life Chiropractic, right?
My office is Life Chiropractic here in South Missoula.
Yeah, can't say enough good stuff about it, man. Like
Appreciate it.
Like just a last thing to tack on the community thing is the first time we went in, there's a tattoo artist in town, and I wish I could remember the gal's name. Super awesome, but like even just because of the community you're building, even just like going into your office has a good feel to it. In the waiting room, talking to other folks that are like just going there to improve their health. Like it's a good vibe and a good conversation. And so you're doing it right, man. I think you're doing a great job.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thanks folks. Thanks for listening. And go get adjusted. Life Chiropractic.